Good morning. This morning, we are going to explore the training principle of specificity. So, briefly and succinctly, what the training principle of specificity means or speaks to is that if the goal or the intention of a movement is to increase strength or range of motion at a specific joint, then you need to move that joint. So if you want to increase range of motion or flexion at your shoulder, then you need to train your shoulder. Kind of simple, right? And straightforward. But there's a few more layers to it than that. And that's what I'd like to explore this morning with you through five movements or so. So one thing I'd like you to keep in mind as we move through and start this exploration is that said another way, the training principle of specificity could sound something like do all that you need to do and nothing more. The tricky part, or the layers that I'm talking about that can be a bit more challenging, those show up when so much of our movement is done under the level of our own awareness. We're moving other parts when we're not aware that we're doing it. And that's okay, but it may help to explain why sometimes you may be working away at trying to, get better mobility at your hips, more range of motion at your shoulders, a stronger core. You're working away, thinking that you're being quite specific with the exercises, when in fact there may be other parts that you're also using that are taking away some of the specificity. So let's dive right in, shall we? You'll need a block. Sorry, not a block. You'll need just a chair and a strap for the movements this morning. So let's start by coming down onto your back and just resting comfortably to begin. So as with any yoga practice or practice of mindful movement, we need to start with the baseline. And the best place, I think, to gather up your baseline information is in stillness. So just lying on your back comfortably in a way that you can be still just for a moment. So that you can listen in to the body. How are you feeling this morning? And let's start our first movement with shoulders, as I brought that up in my little introduction. So bringing your hands straight up towards the ceiling, I'm going to ask you to bring your thumbs together so that you're making like the bottom of a rectangle with your hands, and then your fingers are pointing up towards the ceiling, thumbs are touching, and your arms, your shoulder girdles just landing wherever it will, down on the mat. So the shoulder movement is your arm bone rotating in the socket of your shoulder blade. And we're going to bring your arms up overhead. Good. Only as far as your ears, basically. And then arms can come back and even come down. And so maybe fingertips touch the tops of your thighs. Good. So this is the movement we're going to play with. And let's add in this exploration of specificity. So one place I'd like you to check in with and notice as you move your arms up and down, I'd like you to check in through your ribs. So I'm going to bring one hand down to demonstrate this a little bit. As your arms are going overhead, notice if the bottom part of your ribs, if they want to poke up or flare up towards the ceiling. Good. And if you notice that happening, this, if I really exaggerate, arms come up and there's a poking of the ribs up, you're no longer specifically moving through the shoulder joint. At that point, when the ribs pop, you're now moving through your mid-back. You're moving through your thoracic spine, which may kind of send movement up or down into your neck and into your low back. So if you notice something that's kind of taking away from the specificity of your movement, then only move the specific joint that you're intending the stimulus for. Just move it as far as it can go, working all on its own. So that may mean that you're moving your arms in a bit of a smaller range. That is okay. The specificity will work its magic. Good. You'll make bigger gains in range of motion at your shoulders, moving in a range that your shoulders can move in right now without any other parts of you kicking in and taking some of that. You'll get better range of motion there. You'll get gains faster in that way than if you push and other parts of your body start to compensate and kick in. Okay. Next movement, we'll explore similar principle, well, the same principle, but around our hips this time. So you can lift one leg up towards the ceiling. Good. And then I'd like you just to rotate the thigh bone so that your heel turns towards your opposite leg and your toes point away. So the thigh bone is doing the movement. Good. And then bend your knee and let your ankle come across the opposite knee. Nice. Then from here, using the muscles of your hip, our intention is to move and possibly strengthen around the hip joint. So we use the muscles there. You're just going to press your knee away and then let it come back. Press the knee away and let it come back. Good. And here, do all that you need to do and nothing more. So notice as you move, as you press your knee away and then come on back, is there any movement higher up at your pelvis? So your hip is where your leg bone connects into your pelvis. So for this movement, the specificity is that your pelvis stays quiet, your pelvis stays still, and the leg bone spins in the socket to be specific to the hip. So notice if you're doing anything more than that. This is a simple, really small movement to be specific. So notice if higher up is your pelvis rocking. So I can do a movement that looks quite similar to my knee moving away and coming back by shifting through my pelvis. So pulling one hip up to my rib cage and then the other. But here, with this movement, I'm no longer moving my hip. The stimulus isn't in through my hip. The stimulus is up into my low back and my pelvis. Good. So just check in and see. Another thing you can check for is if there's any like bracing or holding happening anywhere else in your body. We're lying back. You can be fully supported by the floor, and the place of effort is just around your hip that's moving. So check in and notice, is there any tendency to want to push your shoulders down into the mat or to lift your ribs? And again, if you notice any of these things, pelvis moving, shoulders pressing, anything like that, then that's awesome, because now you're aware of them. Now they're in your level of awareness. They're not below it. So now you can address them and move the leg bone in the hip socket in a way, in a range of motion, where those other things don't need to show up and try to help. Great. Let's switch sides. Leg comes up. No need for the knee to be straight. Just comfortably lifting the leg and then rotating the leg bone in the hip socket and placing ankle to knee. Wonderful. And then we rotate. Leg bone in the socket of your pelvis. Do all that you need to do and nothing more. And if you do a little bit more, then that's fine. That's a-okay. It's probably good, actually, that you notice what your something more is. What's your kind of go-to automatic strategy to help you get more hip mobility? That's where the power is. That's where the change will happen, is when you're aware of these automatic movements that weren't at your level of awareness before. So now you can get specific. Now you can move in a way that really, truly leaves the stimulus at your hip. Wonderful. And then just take a moment here, having done 2 movements, check back in and see how you feel now. There's an ease and an efficiency to moving within this principle of specificity. And that physical ease or efficiency can translate into your whole state, so that there may be a quality of just feeling a little easier, a little lighter through your system. Okay, we're going to move up into the chair now for our next few movements. And you'll use your strap as well. So have a seat in your chair, and with the strap in your hands, we'll bring your arms up overhead. Wonderful. Now your arms, so we're doing a shoulder movement again here. So the movement will look like this. Arms will move back behind your head, elbows will bend so that the strap comes behind your head, and then back up again. So the joint we're specifically moving here is your shoulders. Yes, your elbows are kind of along for the ride to help out, but let's focus in on the shoulders. And a couple of things you can watch for with this. I'm just going to turn sideways to demonstrate. Shoulders are moving. Notice if you're arching or sending your ribs forward to get your arms behind your back. And if that happens, good call, good notice. And then incorporate that new level of awareness into your movement. So only move as far, maybe the strap just comes to the top of your head, so that your ribs and your back don't need to get involved. Good. Another thing you can pay attention to here, or bring into your level of awareness, is if, as you bring your arms down, are you jutting your head forward in order to clear that movement? So again, same thing applies. If you notice any other parts kind of joining in to try to help out, just a quick thanks but no thanks will do. You're going to try moving in a different way this morning. Wonderful. Let's bring the strap back down. Come to the front edge of your chair so you're not against, you're not hitting the backrest. And we're going to do a twist. So with a twist, our intention is to, or my intention, let me kind of share my slight bias or view of core. We're going to be using the muscles that live between your ribs and your pelvis for this. Yes, there are core muscles that don't live there, but the intention of this isn't to get into that debate. For this video, I'm talking about muscles that live between ribs and pelvis. So bringing your hands, just resting hands to opposite shoulder. And then we're going to turn the ribs to one side and then come back. And then turn the ribs to the other side and then come back. So as you're twisting from side to side, our intention is to really have a conversation between brain and core muscles. So the work of specificity is to tune in to the feelings in your body, the sensations in your body, and see if there's any other parts that want to join in and try to help. So a couple of places you could check in for here, a couple of common spots that want to try and kick in and help your core are your shoulders and your hips. So as you twist to the side, do you notice any movement of your shoulder blade? So one shoulder blade may be pulling back towards your spine. The other shoulder blade may be moving forward away from the spine. So I can do what looks like a bit of a twist here. I'm not moving my rib cage at all. So the muscles between here and here, they're not moving at all. This is all my shoulder girdle. So notice if that's kicking in. And if it is, bring your awareness down where you want it to go. People like to say where focus goes, energy flows, right? So we want to, if you notice another part kicking in to try to help, then instead of saying, no, you don't move, switch it around and try talking to the place that you want the movement to be generated from, and just ask it to do a little bit less. Make it a little bit easier for the specific area of your body that you're working on to do the work without other parts kicking in. Another place you can check in, I mentioned, is around your hips. So as you're spinning, notice if your leg bones are moving side to side at all. So I'm demonstrating that now. So it may look like both legs kind of move side to side away from the direction that you're twisting your torso, or it may look like just one knee kind of coming in towards its partner. Okay, so again, if you notice that, thank you hips for trying to help out, but I'm really trying to specifically engage the muscles around my torso. So I'm just going to do a little bit less of the desired specific movement so that this area can do all of the work for me. Great. One last movement here. I'm going to shift the chair off to the side. And then you'll just bring one foot up onto the seat rest of your chair. Good. We're going to take another twist here. So turning ribs towards the leg that's up on the chair. Good. And back to center. Turning your ribs. Good. And back to center. And here we can add a bit of a hold. So turning the ribs, nice. And then just gently placing hand on your leg, and maybe the other arm just extends out away from where it is. And then holding here and breathing. And feeling if the work of maintaining this twist moves out of this area between ribs and pelvis. So you may notice that you're pulling hand on your knee to help kind of torque, pull you more into the twist. So if you notice that, then just take a little off. Let the work live in this area. Great. Let's come back. Other leg comes up. Ribs turn relative to your pelvis. Can do a few, exploring that movement. See what it feels like. Really hone in on your specificity. So you're filtering the movement down, 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 down. So it's just this area that's working. Then we'll add the hold. Hand gently rests on the thigh. Other arm easily reaches out. Good. And letting that go. Come on back down to where we started. Lying down on your back. Knees can be bent or legs can be straight. And now, back where we started, checking in. Noticing any changes in your physical body and the sensations that it's sending to you. And enjoying just a few moments of stillness. So you are certainly welcome to remain in your still place for as long as you like. Hope you enjoyed this little exploration into the training principle of specificity. I'll be back next week with some more integrated physiotherapy, yoga therapy practices. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.